Hey, everybody. It is Angie Atkinson, and it is Tuesday. So I'm here with the beautiful and talented Dana Morningstar. Dana, welcome back.
Well, thank you, Angie, for having me. It's always great to see you.
My pleasure, as always. And as you guys know, Dana and I do this every Tuesday, alternating weeks on this channel and her channel, Thrive After Abuse. So, okay, hold on. I hear myself talking. I fixed it. Okay. Thank you. All right. Thrive After Abuse. So make sure you subscribe to her channel as well so that you can catch all of these awesome streams. Okay. Now, where were we here? Okay. So, hey, Dana, how are you? How's this week been?
I'm good. Today is actually my birthday.
Yeah. So. Oh my gosh. Well, I have to sing happy birthday to you. Are you ready?
Oh. That's not necessary.
He said, no, thank you. Okay. Usually I do this for everybody in the chat, but okay, I understand. All right. No happy birthday for Dana, but tell her happy birthday in the comments, everybody. All right. Now, where were we? Let's see. Okay. So Dana, what made you do this on your birthday? This is awesome. You could have taken the day off, if you wanted to.
I had thought about it, but I think we're so alike. Like we just love doing this stuff, right? Yeah. And so yeah, it's enjoyable for me to do this. I do, however, think next year my goal is going to be on a lake with a margarita.
Oh, I love it.
So
I love that goal. You can't go wrong with a margarita in a lake. You know what I'm saying? Wow. Well, you've got a lot of people saying hello and happy birthday to you. We have
Thank you.
Absolutely. Lots and lots of people. Thanks, everybody. Let's see. We have Fetch the Sled, Joe Sauter. Hey, Joe, Child of God. Phyllis Roche, probably. Dreama's here. Divine Time, Raven C, Kit Kat. Hello, 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 everybody. Okay. We are going to start off with a couple of things, Dana and I. Well, I don't know if Dana, do you have a thing today to talk about? Do you want to go there first?
I do have a thing to talk about, but you had mentioned you have an article.
I do.
Let's talk about that first.
Okay. So I found this article. It's from Fast Company, and it talks about, the different ways narcissism is misunderstood. And it's pretty spot on, because a lot of people who don't understand narcissistic abuse, and really people who haven't dug into NPD, don't always understand all the nuances of it. And you might even think a narcissist has a better chance at life if you don't fully understand all the depth of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in this article, basically, I think the thing that it's saying is that there's such a thing as a humble narcissist, right? So I don't know what I think about this.
Wait, they're saying there's no such thing as a humble narcissist?
No, they're saying there is such a thing.
Oh, okay.
And I think the idea is that it is on the condition, it's the condition of having a deep level of narcissism while working to mitigate it with humility. And they say that it's not that you don't either have humility or you don't. They say that it's something you seek and try to understand. I have this feeling, well, anyway, the study says that self-reported narcissists, which again, they may or may not understand what they're reporting, right? Exactly. Self-reported narcissists from a Fortune 100 company were assessed on how effective their employees thought that they were. So these were bosses, right? And then they said they compared those with the employees' own engagement and performance. And by far, narcissistic leaders who were reported to display frequently humility were seen as far more effective, and their employees were more engaged. I don't really think that they're talking about the same type of, I don't think they're talking about people with NPD. What do you think?
Oh, gosh. I mean, they could be. There's some people out there. Here's an example. Who I would say are very narcissistic, if not full out NPD. And the person that comes to mind is Wayne Dyer. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was big spiritual guru, and he recently died like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
He did a movie.
Mm-hmm.
He'd always been kind of on my radar. It's a lot of, I guess it's not humility, it's false humility.
Oh, sure.
That's the difference. I think with narcissists, it's this, and I think it's designed to get people to say, oh, no, 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 you're so awesome. You're so great. You're so this, you're so that.
Yeah.
And I think to those of us that have experienced that false humility, it just comes across like, oh, give me a break. Right. Wayne Dyer did a movie a few years ago, and I'd have to Google the name. And I hate to talk poorly about a person who's passed away, but right. I'm watching this movie and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. He made himself this like spiritual center of the film. Everybody else is falling apart, but right. He's the one that is just like walking in Zen and has all the answers. And when you understand narcissism, like you see that, you're just like, dude, it's so much false humility, and it's so just icky.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's kind of what that article is talking about.
That's what I would agree with your statement. The article itself was written by an organizational psychologist. Okay. Mm-hmm. The thing is, he's saying basically to be fair, it's a corporate type leadership website, right? Mm-hmm. Or whatever. But so he talks about that. He talks about humility as a skill almost. He talks about how you can practice to hone your humility. And, it says first, here's what narcissists need to learn how to do at work. It says, first find someone to praise for their contributions or strengths, then admit limits and mistakes. And doing both of these on a regular basis might feel risky, but it will help engender trust. And then be teachable by seeking to learn from others. No person would do. I mean, if narcissists were capable of, can you hear me, Dana?
Yeah.
Dana. Okay. It was cutting out, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. So did you hear the part about what a humble person would do in this situation, all that stuff, the things narcissists are supposed to ask themselves?
No, repeat that part.
Okay. Please. So they want the if you're worried that you're a narcissistic manager, this psychologist advises that you first find someone that you can praise for what they did at work. And then you admit your limits and mistakes, it says. And then because even though it feels risky, it can help engender trust. It's like they're teaching people to be human. And then they say, be teachable by seeking to learn from other people, no matter their rank in the pecking order, which is almost impossible for a narcissist. And then ask yourself, what would a humble person do in this situation? So I think what this is ironically trying to do is teach a person how to fake empathy a little bit, which I think I just found it to be such a strange article. And I think
that's strange. I think, if they're talking about managers who are concerned that they're too narcissistic, those managers probably aren't narcissists.
That's what I said.
But at the same time, I think some of what they're saying, it is good, like leadership skills.
Yes.
For people that might kind of struggle with how to lead effectively. I mean, I think one of the best books I've ever read in my life is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Yeah. And the title sounds so manipulative. Mm-hmm. But it really is a great book on kind of how to effectively relate to other people. And it's a lot of what that article is saying is kind of in the book. And it's stuff that's not taught. So I do think that there's a lot of people out there that really don't know how to lead people. So, I mean, that kind of stuff is worth learning, but
I agree. I think it's good. Yeah. Yeah. It was just an interesting, I guess, that it was written by a psychologist or whatever, did I say? To be
organizational fair. Psychologist, right?
Organizational. Yeah. So maybe that's not but still, it seems like there would be some indication. I feel like this person in this article thinks of narcissists as just people who are a little selfish or selfie takers, or you know what I mean?
Oh, I agree. I mean, if you had like a full out narcissist or sociopath or psychopath for a boss, A, they're not going to give two hoots about learning to change. Right. And B, the least of your worries working there is going to be like basic people skills. I mean, you're talking like high level of chaos and disruption and illegal goings on and bullying and like all kinds of outrageous working environment.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, it's it's crazy. Anyway, that's what I had to say about that. And we have I wanted to know what was the thing that you were going to talk about? You mentioned that you had something to...
I was going to bring up how somebody had mentioned in a previous comment in one of my videos about, love, or when we have a narcissist in our life, it's generally a sign that we need to take some steps back and examine our vulnerabilities, or examine kind of how they got into our life. Mm-hmm. And I had responded back, I totally agree with that. I think it's definitely worth kind of evaluating, like, is this an event or is this a pattern? And how did they get in? But at the same time, it's a spectrum and they're all different, and anybody can get tangled up with these people. And I guess my concern is that it's really easy for people to, if they keep getting tangled up with pathological or toxic people, to take it so personally and think, oh no, I still have unhealed child wounds, and oh no, and they stay stuck in the introspection. And it might not even be unhealed childhood wounds. It might be that your map for understanding the different types of people in this world is incomplete. Because for normal, decent people, it's really hard for us to understand that there are people like this that walk the earth. I mean, I still am caught off guard when I hear certain stories where I'm just blown away by things that it's just not even on your radar. I mean, I heard, for example, I came across a video on YouTube the other day about, this was a story 10, 15 years ago, I think, in the UK, where this little 2-year-old boy had gone missing and then they found him murdered. And it turned out that 2 10-year-old boys had done it. Oh. And the detective, it was a homicide detective who'd been doing this for decades, had said it wasn't even on their radar that children could have done something like this.
I get that.
Right? So even though we might have increased our understanding of kind of how the world works and the people in it, and working towards our intuition and boundaries and standards and all that, sometimes people are going to surprise us, and we're just not going to see it coming. And so I just wanted to let that be known, because I think people can get stuck thinking, what's wrong with me? I'm still broken. I need to do more because I'm still like attracting these people. And, how do I keep them out? But sometimes none of us are, if they're real charming and charismatic, they can fly under anybody's radar. And it's not so much about us avoiding that. It's more about us getting them out once we see them for what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think that, on the same, like a similar note, I think the same note, really, people say, well, one of my taglines on my channel is like narcissistic abuse recovery for smart people, because I love my smart people. And, anyway, and one of the things that I think a lot of smart people say to me is, I don't understand how I fell into that. I'm so much smarter than this. I should have known better. The same thing. You know what I mean? So I think that's very profound. And I think I've done videos on how that almost that exact thing. It can happen to anyone. It's sneaky, it's pervasive. And even someone like you or me can actually be still kind of thrown by one now and then. You know what I mean? Somebody who studies it for a living. I mean, that's, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. And I think it's one of those things too, the more you know about this topic, the easier it is to almost doubt yourself. And, when I went on a few dates with this one guy, he was the guy that experience really started, was the reason I started my blog. It's because it was all of that introspection. Is it me? Is it him? What's going on? Because I hadn't encountered anybody like that since the previous sociopath in my life. And so it had been a handful of years, and it just threw me off guard. And, he was very quick. Him and other people were very quick to be like, well, Dana, but you're a psychiatric nurse, like we're in this day in and day out, like, don't take your work home with you, blah, blah. And so it was and like, then it was really crazy making, like, is it really me? Is it because I deal with sociopaths and problematic behavior all day long? Like, and it was really difficult for me to take a step back and be like, no. Right. Like what I'm experiencing is real and it has nothing to do with what I do for a living. This is a problem on its own.
Right.
And yeah.
And I totally agree. And it's difficult, I think, I don't know. I think self-blame and also self-doubt, I think those things are fostered in us by abusers anyway. And so it kind of adds to the whole thing. And like I always say, what I did in my relationships were always, I would try to figure out how to help that person change. And when I couldn't, what do you think I did? I tried to change myself. And that's what I think a lot of us do. And then unfortunately we change ourselves into something that we never wanted to be in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, powerful stuff. Good share. Any other thoughts on that?
I guess just for other people that are struggling with kind of wondering, is it them? Is it me? If you make your new standard in your life of like, my safety and sanity matters, and I don't do mental anguish, I don't do perpetual confusion, just making that your standard, it releases you from trying to figure out, are they a narcissist? Are they a psychopath? Is this really manipulation? It just frees you from all of that because it doesn't matter. It's like, you know what? I just don't do mental anguish in my life. And I have other people that I don't experience this around, and life's too short to be around people that are just not nourishing.
Yeah. It's about raising your loving yourself enough to raise your standards,
yes.
or at least tolerating yourself enough, because sometimes it takes a minute to get to love, right?
That's very true.
Yeah.
But
it's worth it. All right. Hello, Frankie, Jody, Kira, Kit Kat. All right. Hey, I have one from, it's not really a question, more of a comment from Kit Kat, where she says that she saw her ex at a school function after a month of no contact and was shocked by his appearance. She said he was so thin and had a completely different wardrobe, which of course that's because in her case, he has a new supply already. So I think that's very interesting. My guess is that he probably is conforming in order to appear to be the perfect match. What do you think?
Yeah. That's what they do. And it's really weird. And that guy that I was just talking about, that sparked me to start my blog, that was one of the first, probably like the most visible red flag there was, is I was looking at his Facebook page, and it was such radically different people, all within a relatively short time frame. And I remember thinking, like, that's just really weird. It's one thing when a person's like in high school, right? And they're kind of experimenting with different things, but it was like, I mean, radically different person. And that's a little like, why are you kind of morphing into, I think it shows that there's no solid sense of self. Like if they keep morphing into whatever their partner wants, if their partner is vegan and Buddhist, and then all of a sudden they become that, and then the next partner, they're hunting and
wearing cowboy boots.
Yeah, right. Or they're hunting and they're a Christian, and then the next person, they're an atheist and they're, Mr. Rock and Roll or Mrs. Rock and Roll. Like
I've seen it.
I have seen it too, and it's really weird.
It really is. It is. It's like like almost like a weird form of identity theft. I don't know. This is why I think this is why people think, some people have, and I know you and I have had this discussion way, way back when I did that really long interview with you that one time, but there is a group of people who believes that narcissists are demons. And I think it's things like that make them think that. You know what I mean? The fact that there seems to be no literal, interests outside of oneself. Everything is just
shape-shifting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's it. And her husband's or ex-husband's case, quite literally shape-shifting. That's interesting.
Well, I could see it too. I mean, when you see that mask fully slip, and that lack of, not only like the lack of empathy and remorse, but you just realize like the maliciousness that this person was gonna totally try to destroy your life because they wanted to, for whatever reason.
Right.
Like darkness. I mean, it just hits you at such a gut level where you just feel like, I have never encountered, this is not what I know to be human.
Right.
Human beings have empathy. We have remorse. We're team oriented. We work together. I think it was Dr. Robert Hare, who talks about psychopaths basically being intra-species predators. And
I think, yep. Yep.
And I think when people talk about them as demons, frankly, and I know there's such a kind of like a supernatural association with the concept of demons,
Right.
but I really do think that's probably where a lot of those concepts came from. And I'm not even sure if it even needs to be something that's supernatural. Like, I think there's enough evil that's awful enough that exists within human beings.
Right. I think just like a lot of, and I don't know if I should even say it, I think just like a lot of supernatural ideas, sometimes we need to hear things like that in order to make ourselves understand the possibilities of evil. Because when someone doesn't have different populations, different people, when someone doesn't have like a way to make sense of it, over the years, we have created things like demons or things like, whatever. There are a lot of different theories on that, but you know what I'm talking about as far as humanity as a whole. When we don't understand something and we can't explain it with our current ability of science, we create a supernatural explanation. Sometimes it's the only way we can possibly get our head around it. And I think in some cases, that's why people, just because of things like we've discussed here, I think that's where the idea comes from. What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like, a couple hundred years ago, if the crops failed or if people died of disease, they thought it was witchcraft, right? And you keep burning people at the stake until the crops come back or the diseases pass. But now that we understand weather patterns and germ theory, we don't need to keep burning people at the stake because we know better. So, and I think it's the same thing with kind of understanding evil that exists within humans as something that's supernatural. I mean, it may or may not be. But like I said, I think it's an unhealthy ego can cause a lot of evil just by its. But at the same time, I get where people are coming from. Like, I dated a guy when I was in high school, and he was terrifying, and I was terrified of him, and he stalked me for a handful of years after that, and I was scared to say his name out loud. I was scared to even think about him too hard because it kind of never failed. Like, he would end up showing up, and we didn't even live in the same town. He lived 2 hours away.
Right.
And so, but I think what's going on there when because I think that's really common. People are like, man, what is this? Like, I thought about him and now, or her, and now something about them, either they show up or it's like your old song, or there's some sort of something surfaces that reminds you of them.
Yeah.
I think what's going on with that is it's more confirmation bias. So like, we're interpreting incoming data to match up with this existing belief that we have. So it's basically it's linking up incorrect cause and effect, but it feels very real when we're doing it. It's like, no, I thought about his name and then he surfaced, but the reality is you might have also thought about this person two dozen other times and they didn't surface.
Right. So, that's a good point. Yep, absolutely. Good point. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's very important. Now, I have this other question that's not entirely related, but kind of is, but do you have one before? Because I think I was the one that brought up the last.
People in the chat are talking about twin flame.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
You wanted to go first?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be really honest with you and tell you that I have this much knowledge on it. I've read about it a little bit, and I think the idea is that your twin flame is like your sort of almost like your test person, the person that's supposed to test you into becoming the best possible thing you can be. But I don't know. Tell me what you know about it, because I'm
okay. I just Googled it because I am just like you. I'm not quite sure. Okay. According to the site that I just recently pulled up on the internet, basically a twin flame relationship is a divine union with a divine purpose.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that. Yeah. And doesn't it say something about this person? I could be wrong, but I've read about how this person naturally opposes you or something, or sort of forces you to kind of evolve in some way. I could have just been reading about the bad ones, but it was brought to my attention at some point, twin flames, and I think it's such a fascinating topic because, you know, I think the idea was that some people were using this theory to stay in relationships with narcissists because they see now, because they say here's one, your guide to experiencing rare transcendental love. You know what I mean? Oh, here's something. 18 signs you're experiencing a twin flame relationship. So you're intensely drawn to them. They've opened you up to a completely new way of thinking. They come in and out of your life. They feel like home. Here it is. You are the epitome of yin and yang, and they don't just, you know, in the good ways and bad, I guess. Find yourself becoming almost irrationally emotional when you're with them. Bond is instantaneous. Relationship moves very quickly. Sounding familiar?
Run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You experience incredible passion. There's an equal amount of worry and uncertainty. I'm just giving you kind of the highlights here. It seems like you have a profound connection that must be destined, but you come into each other's lives at the wrong time, or something else stands in the way of being together. I mean, you're more than just lovers, blah, blah, blah. You know, you're always pulled back to them, Hoover. Your relationship is tumultuous. Here it is, because your twin flame serves to show you everything that needs to be healed within you. See, this is not to be confused with love being painful, but it is being confused with love being painful.
Yeah.
You know, and it goes on and on in a similar fashion. And I think the thing is, I mean, I would love for that to be a real concept, and maybe it is. I don't really know. I can't say one way or the other. But I just got to say that I think a lot of people are using this concept as a reason to stay with an abusive person. Oh, our relationship is spiritually, you know, divine. It's supposed to be there or whatever. And he's supposed to test me. She's supposed to test me. That's what I hear. And what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think when I read that, I think people are confusing intensity with sincerity. They're confusing being a person being controlling with them being caring. Yes. I think they're confusing love bombing with love. It's everything that's described there, that over the top. They're confusing trauma bonds with healthy bonds. You know, I can't let this person go. I crave them. I dream about them. We have this psychic connection. I think about them and they show up, just like
you're.
Yeah. You know, they're so intense. I've never felt like this about anybody. When they're gone, I feel like I blow apart in a million pieces and only they can make me whole. And it's just this level of like intensity and, you know, destruction. And that's not love. And until people understand, like, that's not love. Like, you're talking about trauma bonds and most likely codependency and, you know, narcissism and a push pull. And there's nothing sexy or romantic or spiritual about destroying yourself at the foot of for somebody else. Like, that whole kind of ride or die mentality it's incredibly toxic. But, you know, movies and media and music, all of this paints this as this ideal love because these trauma bonds feel so intense. Like you were saying the other week, Angie, about, you know, it's like quitting heroin.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to be like, but I freaking love them. I need them. I think about them. I dream them. I eat them. I breathe them. I sleep them. And it's like, yes, you're detoxing from them. It's nothing more, nothing less. Like, these are trauma bonds.
Yeah.
But I do think at the same time, when we get people in our lives like this, that the healing, like the healthy side of that, on the other side of that is all of the personal growth that can come from it, from us examining, well, wait a minute, maybe my map about what love is was really off to begin with.
Ooh, yeah. Can you still hear me? I just bumped my. Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. Mine's, I was doing this because I was like, yes, because I'm totally with you. That's the truth. I did that. I rethought the whole thing and, you know, had to recognize that sometimes love is boring, but it's real. You know what I mean? Sometimes it is after 16 years or whatever, you know, but, or 30 or whatever, but when it's real, you know, you get through those times and, you know, comfortable is for me at this point in my life, so much better than exciting and new sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
it's nice, right? Like, because then it settles into more of a mature love where there's
Yeah.
like that deeper level of appreciation of, oh my goodness, it's like you show love in different ways. It's not, necessarily like this romantic love all the time, but it might be more like, oh, I took the trash out, or I made dinner because you weren't feeling well.
Yep.
Or,
Or maybe I'll take the kids to piano lessons this week, honey, so you can have a break.
yeah,
Whatever.
just showing your
Yeah.
appreciation for the other person in different ways. But if people, and I can see why people would confuse that level of intensity for something healthy, and
Mhm.
because it feels like the crap that's sold to us from fairy tales and from TV and the movies of. And I think most people that have gone through this, especially with like the charming narcissists and sociopaths out there, it feels like a fairy tale. It feels like this is too good to be true. And if it is actually true, I'm shocked that it would happen to me. Like this feels like a fairy tale. And so it's so easy to want to jump full speed into that fairy
Yeah,
tale,
of
but
course.
not realizing. And this is the other side of that, kind of the kind of the dangers of this is I see this time and time again where people are really focused on kind of attracting the perfect partner. And then they meet somebody, because again, if their map of the world of understanding people in the world is not complete, and they're thinking they're not on the lookout for charming and charismatic as being at the red flags that they are.
Right.
And they think, oh, I'm putting my intention out into the universe. I really want to attract a soulmate, somebody who is, spiritual and everything that I am. And then they meet somebody like that. The odds of them actually screening this person at all, let alone through the filters of healthy boundaries, standards, deal breakers, and going slow, is very slim, because they're going to think, oh, I've manifested this person. So I don't want to question the universe, because I don't want this perfect manifestation to go away. That's incredibly dangerous thinking. And again, it's that confirmation bias of, I put it
Right.
out into the world that I wanted a soulmate, this perfect person appeared, and therefore this is my soulmate. I don't need to go slow. I don't need to use any common sense or boundaries or anything, because I've manifested this.
And that's just I totally completely
It's a
wrong, in my
confirmation
opinion.
bias.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, there's no getting around going slow. And it is that idealization. This is something else we were talking about, the idealization of a soulmate. Because we do this too. So if we're feeling like I've met this perfect person, this is a very clear sign that we are also in that idealized stage. And
Yeah.
everybody goes through it for about the first 90 days where that other person seems so amazing. And
Yeah.
it's because we don't know them. It's because our brains like put in a bunch of pieces to fill in the gaps that might not really be there.
Yeah. And it's because I think also when we are not fully self-realized, which, let's be honest, most of us weren't before we got into our worst relationships, right? Not fully. Because if we were, we wouldn't have some people, I did it, and I know a lot of people did it. You read books, and the books tell you act like this in order to catch a husband or a wife, act like this in order to be attractive to the opposite sex. The problem is when you jump into a relationship and you're acting like this to attract a person, you're not acting like yourself. And so that person and you are kind of both getting screwed in that deal. You know what I mean? I did it in dating relationships, especially as a younger person. And not like I was trying to be fake, but I was trying to be what I thought that person might find more attractive. So that made me have to either continue to essentially live a lie, which I can't. It was not an intentional thing I was doing. I was trying it out anyway. My point is, in that 90-day infatuation period, a lot of not real stuff is happening because of stuff like that, in addition to idealization. Like we might think it's cute when they, suck their teeth after they eat corn or whatever, but
Mhm.
in the first 90 days, but like day 93, man, and forget it. And then, day 6,082,082 or however long several years is, you end up, feeling like, if I hear one more tooth suck, I'm going to lose my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know it's a silly way to put it, but it's real. So I guess, I don't know. Anyway, where were we?
Uh, let's see. I'm trying to go through the chat here. But yeah, I think that's a very common thing, the whole soulmate.
Yeah. I think it's more common. And especially from that, and I love things like that twin flame thing. Believe me, I love all that stuff, but I can't, like, I like to read about it and stuff, but I can't. That particular concept for me is, I have a big struggle with it because of the fact that so many people are using it to justify abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they're just getting it completely wrong.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how many spiritual people out there consider themselves like so woke to understanding, becoming more spiritual and being in alignment and all of this stuff. And I just look at this and I'm like, y'all are just sound asleep.
Yeah.
Like, people who consider themselves so woke, you sure are sound asleep. And that might sound really arrogant, and I don't mean it to be, but it's like, it's scary to me how gullible people can be, thinking that they're being open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
And
see, I want to be like that. I still, there's this part of me that still wishes the world was that way, that we could be like, just spiritually drawn to another person and just really fall in love at first, glance or whatever. And we're just so connected immediately. I want that in life. I wish that was a real thing. And I'm not saying it's not a real thing. I'm saying that it's a very rare thing. And I'm saying that even if it is real, your real soulmate, your real spiritual connection, the real person for you is going to be totally fine if you put them through the ringer a little bit and try to figure out who they are. They're going to be totally fine if you take things super slow, and they're still going to be your soulmate. They're not going to be like, well, screw you then, I'm moving on. If you're really supposed to be with that person, all of those things are going to come together, and they're not going to abuse you, or, in my opinion.
Yeah. And let me just clarify too about the whole like feeling really woke, but then being sound asleep. I was that way too. I used to be really big into so many of these concepts, and it took me, so there's no, like, I really don't mean that in like a judgmental or like arrogant kind of way. Like, I was there too. And it's now that you're on the other side of this and you understand about like really kind of what love is, and healthy love and trauma bonds, and versus trauma bonds and all of this stuff, it's so much easier to see a lot of this stuff for the fantasy and the fairy tale and the danger that it really is. And I think there's a ton of spiritual teachers out there and religious teachers, but I think more so in kind of the new age community, that are really pathological liars, and they're incredibly problematic, and they just do a great job of getting people all kinds of twisted up. And like, we all know that there's cults out there, but it's amazing to me, with the power of the internet, like, just, there's so many, I would even say kind of mini cults within YouTube. Like, it's so much easier to create this kind of this storm of really far out there beliefs and connecting with people worldwide. There was a cult leader, I think recently, again, like, they get busted all the time for child weddings, or you're just dealing with, if you've got a person with a pathological mindset, plus they're delusional. They think that they are God. They think that they are a prophet. They think that they are a reincarnation of Cleopatra, or who knows what. Do you know what I mean? Like, some really far out stuff. And if people just continue to just gobble this stuff up and take it at face value, thinking like I made a comment on one video, and this one woman told me that I basically needed to be more open-minded and to like enlighten up, is what she said, which I thought was kind of a cute little phrase. But but it was like, no, the whole being open-minded means that you suspend judgment on a concept, and you're open to, it might be true or false. But if there's no proof there other than a person claiming that they are an entity from another planet, like, there, at some point, it is okay to be like, this person is delusional. Like, if their claims are not based on fact, or if they can be proven in another way, then there's no reason to think that this person's actually an alien if you can prove it with something that can be proven.
Right. DNA test, whatever.
Well, I mean, not even that. Like, if somebody has some sort of far out beliefs, sort of like I think you'd given this example before, like if you have a bowl of milk and you put it out and you also have a cat, if you come back and there is no milk in the bowl, there's no reason to think a leprechaun drank the milk.
Right.
If you have a cat, right? Like the most
Right.
likely possibility is that the cat drank the milk.
Right.
But people will hold on to this, but you don't know. How do you know for sure? How do you know for sure? You've got to stay open-minded. It might have been a leprechaun. And it's like, well, what is your proof? What is your evidence that a leprechaun drank the milk?
Right.
Oh, well, I don't know, but yeah. It's like, well, then we can't work off of that. Like if you have some sort of evidence that can be tested, then we can work off of that. But then just blindly believing something because other people say it is being gullible. It's not being open-minded.
On every level. I agree with you on that. Every level. And that's the thing when it comes to, well, we talked before about how narcissists themselves are, being with a narcissist is like being with a cult leader. You brought that concept to my frame of reference. And I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. That was so, like I said, profound. I did a whole video, as you know, about it after we talked about it, because I thought, oh my gosh. And it's really true. And this is why. And here, just like with the cult leader, just like with the narcissist, what are they looking for when they're finding people to bring in? They're looking for somebody with a hole that they can plug. The hole, and I don't mean that in a weird sexual way. I realized how that sounded, but what I mean is, okay, I have daddy issues. Here's my daddy hole. That sounds weird again. You know what I'm saying? I've got a hole in my life. There's something missing in my life. And so a narcissist comes along, goes zoop, and sees it, a toxic person, and they go, what can I put in, what can I do for her to make her feel loved in this moment? Okay. So then maybe they think I have daddy issues. So they try to, take care of me a little bit. Maybe they hold me up a little bit and they say, you're so smart. You're so this, you're so that, whatever. But then, later they're going to just control me and abuse me by telling me I'm stupid and alone and whatever. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's they not only do they look for the hole they can fill, but they also they remember where it is so they can pull everything back out of it and make you feel completely out of control and lost again. And I think that's the worst part of all of this, is that that's how it kind of is connected, I guess.
Yeah, you see, like with cults, the whole concept of love bombing actually comes from the concept of cults and how they recruit members. And it's not like they even necessarily have like these, clandestine meetings where they sit around thinking like, okay, who's going to be our target?
Right.
They have found some sort of solution. They have met some sort of vulnerability within themselves that this cult is providing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a sense of family, it's comfort, it's some sort of belief system that gives them comfort in some way, shape, or form, right? And so they get excited. They're like, man, I feel like I have some answers. This is really great. And then they want to excitedly, they want to share this solution with other people. That's what we all do when we find something amazing, right? Yeah. But the problem is, if you've got a person with a pathological personality steering the ship, and who then the more power, the more attention, the more followers and fame they get, you start seeing like the narcissism starts coming out, and like the stranger the beliefs, and then the kind of the more damaging the ideologies, and it's like a boa constrictor just starts wrapping itself around that group of, it becomes more controlling. Right. You think like me, you need to dress like me, you need to do these things because I say so. And then they start, the more delusional narcissists out there, I think they really do start believing their own garbage. Mm-hmm. I am, Marshall Applewhite, whatever, the Heaven's Gate guy, I have a direct connection to the UFOs, and we're all going to catch the Hale-Bopp comet, and this is how we're going to do it. And he was so intense and he believed this so much. And I'm sure he was spinning some evidence that he was the confirmation bias. He was finding evidence out there that was pointing to confirm his existing belief system. And these other people were already in so far, right? They'd already given up like their life savings. They've already all moved in. They've already, done all of these extreme things. It's that whole sunk cost fallacy. Like you're already kind of pot committed to this. So continuing to go along with it
is your only option.
You're like, this is kind of weird, but it's like when you're playing poker, you're like, okay, this hand's probably not going anywhere, but okay, I'm in for, an extra, whatever, $10. and you just keep going in, even though you should have folded a long time ago.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yep. So interesting. Yeah. Yeah. It's very, yeah. Well, this is a little bit off topic, but I still want to catch this question. Stephanie Adora, she says, anyone being called names by their narcissist? She said, I've done very well being positive, but today is challenging for me. And I just want to say, I have a whole video on being called names by the narcissist, but I think we all have on some level, whether they directly said you're this and you're that, or they, used adjectives to describe you that were not nice, like whatever names or adjectives, ugly, fat, whatever, stupid, all the good stuff. What, as far as what it looks like to me is, just like, somebody used to tell me when I was a kid that somebody, cussing is a sign of an uncreative mind or something, which I think has actually been proven to be the opposite of true. But, but regardless, I think that, if someone's calling you names, it's proof that they have a lack of concern for how you feel. And in fact, that maybe it's even in a dangerous place. It's abusive, verbally abusive. But I've been there. I felt horrible about the way someone spoke to me, and I know that pain. What are your thoughts about that, Dana? What would you say to someone who's, what I would say gray rock, and I have other thoughts, but what would you think about that?
About a person who's calling you names?
Yeah. And what would you tell this person? How would you, because it's hard to go through that. It's painful. Would you tell her to, gray rock? I would say gray rock, but also to be planning to get out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Gray rock or no contact. I mean, that's kind of the foundation of basic adult behavior that we all master at a fairly young age. If you don't call other people names.
Yeah.
And, it's okay for a person to get frustrated. It's okay for them to get angry. It's not okay to unleash on a person and destroy them with name calling. And when we can get to a place where we can see, like, and this is hard and it does take practice, but seeing that them unloading on you like that's a reflection of them. It's not a reflection of you. Normal, happy, healthy, well-adjusted people don't need to go around tearing other people down. Like, we might have some of those thoughts about other people, right? But we have that filter where we stop.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to destroy them. Like, we might get frustrated, but most of us, right? Like, you rein it in, and you might bring it up in a more constructive way later of like, hey, this is not okay with me, or like, can we talk about this, or what have you? But abusers don't have that. And that's why they feel so justified, because in that moment, they're like, yeah, you really frustrated me. And that's why I, went off on this verbal tangent and just threw my garbage all over you. But it's not okay for people to do that.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Just justification. I used to excuse that behavior because I would think, oh, well, I understand people better than most people, so I can use this to my benefit in this relationship. And so when I would get the emotional garbage dump, I would say, what's really wrong? What can I help you with? I know it's not this. I know it's something else. What can I help you with? And like, that was great, because that's exactly what that person wanted, was more attention. But it's not always the right, you can't tolerate abuse just because you understand people better than other people. That's just a little side note from me.
Right. Yeah. And also added to that, when a person's in that fight defense, approaching them and trying to be vulnerable with them, let's talk about this, or, trying to get them to open up is just going to bring out further rage for them, because when any of us are in that fight mode and somebody's trying to be cool, calm, and collected, and who's trying to get us to work towards a solution, I really feel like that's not possible. When a person's in that fight defense, they're in that me versus you mindset. And so us trying to get them to be vulnerable just brings out more rage in them, because when a person's in that fight mindset, they're like, I can't work towards a solution. You're the enemy. I can't be more vulnerable. You trying to make me more vulnerable. You're the enemy. It doesn't necessarily register like that, but they're probably telling themselves, oh, you feminist, you're just trying to make me weak. you're doing this, like, this is you liberal, you know what I mean? They're just attacking all of that. But what they're really saying is like, no, it's not safe for me to be vulnerable with how I really feel. It's much safer for me to tear you down.
Absolutely.
There is no working with that.
You're right. You're right.
And that's why things escalate.
And I think that's part of the reason we get stuck in like mentally, because we don't want to see, or we can't see that there's no working with that. There's no getting, you cannot get under that skin. That skin is like locked down.
Yeah, there's walls all around that person, and they are just lacking the kind of fundamental framework that most of us have developed at a young age. I mean, working as a team, being able to restraint with the things that you say and do, not being impulse based, these kinds of things. Most people have this stuff down. And if a person doesn't, and if you're seeing a person who lashes out in frustration and they just start smashing stuff, screaming at you, hitting, cussing, that's a big, big, big problem. And it shows that they feel justified and entitled acting that way, and that they lack that kind of internal self-restraint.
Right. Yeah. And it's very dangerous to stay in anything. And we all know, and whether it's just emotionally or physically, just emotionally is a really horrible way to say it, because it's, some emotional abuse can be harder to heal than anything else. But yeah, abuse is abuse. Don't tolerate it. Dana, we have and I know I'm not trying to, if you have one to bring it up, but we have several people, and I'm just going to condense what they're saying.
Okay.
Different kinds of stalking after the fact. We have one person who says it's been 10 years. Now the person's coming back. We have another person who says she moved after 24 years of marriage, and now she had to go back, and now she's living 5 minutes from her ex, and now he's coming to her job and her apartment against her will. Another person saying, threatening legal action, the narcissist, emotionally blackmailing, threatening, when it comes to this kind of stuff, I mean, when you have kids with these people, obviously when they're children under 18, you still have to deal with that person up to a point for business purposes of the children. But outside of that, this is where you go no contact. I mean, do you think that somebody coming to their apartment how much does it take before you can report him to the police is what I'm asking. What, in your opinion, can she report her ex-husband to the police for repeatedly coming by her job and apartment?
Yeah, you can report anybody for anything at any time. So even if they've come by once, I would start a paper trail with that. And so at least it's being documented. And, you realizing, I think one of the hardest things with being stalked like this is it can be, it's not right and it's not fair. And you're the one that has to change.
Yeah.
And that's what's so frustrating. It's like, man, I shouldn't have to. So I would encourage you, change the way that you go to work, change up your routine, get a timer that has lights on for your apartment or your house, so they can't tell if you're home or not. If you're in an apartment, let the apartment manager know. You might want to consider getting some cameras outside of your place. We have, at our old house, we had cameras on the outside of our house that were night vision cameras, and they recorded 24/7. And so it was interesting because they came in handy quite a few times with just like neighbor kids doing stuff. Our next door neighbors had a burglary.
Oh, wow.
That we caught on film. So it's getting cameras installed. It's, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. My boyfriend has a front and rear camera on his car, which also ended up catching a hit and run accident that he was in.
Wow. Right on.
Yeah. So I mean, sometimes it's not even like you catch stuff that you don't even intend to catch, and it's not fair that you have to go to that expense, but you'll be glad you did if you feel like somebody's stalking you, because then you have proof.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's, yeah. So protect yourself. If you're being stalked or harassed by the narcissist, do your paper trail, put your cameras up, get your evidence if you can get it, and protect yourself. I agree. Reporting to the police, even though it might feel petty to do that, I think it's a necessary thing. At least get it on file just in case it continues. And this one, a couple of them. So what do you do for somebody who, like Jessica's saying that she wants to break up, but when she does, the person threatens her, so she stays and the abuse is getting worse? I mean, this to me is, if you're being threatened, then you stop saying you want to leave. And then the minute you get the chance, you get the heck out of there. And then you don't ever look back. Do you have kids with this person? I would ask you things like that. Dana, what would you say to Jessica?
Yeah. I think it's time to get real clear with yourself about where your deal breakers are, because being threatened and in a relationship, as soon as manipulation of any kind starts, and that I would say is on the extreme end of manipulation, there is an unequal balance of power. And when there's an unequal balance of power in any type of dynamic, a healthy relationship ceases to be there.
Yeah.
So if somebody's actually, threatening you, this goes back to, if you have your safety and your sanity as a top priority, doesn't matter if it's right or fair or what other people think, your safety and sanity matter. You matter.
Yeah.
And you sometimes have to take like drastic action in order to meet that standard. And that can be difficult if you're used to like, this is our new normal. Like, this is how we just fight. This is just how things have been for a long time. This is a huge red flag. Like, these are how violent crimes happen. This is how people get hospitalized. This is how people die.
These absolutely
are
right.
warning signs.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. Normal, healthy, well-balanced people don't threaten your life. Like, that's not a relationship. That's somebody that you need to stay far away from.
Yeah. And
do so safely.
Absolutely. I hear so many people say, well, it's not going to happen to me, or, oh, they're not that bad. Oh, so he smacks me or she smacks me once in a while, but now, everything's fine this time, and whatever. There's always something. Oh, they're going to change. Oh, they were crying. They were so sorry. Those are the people who you hear about on the news later, y'all. I don't want to hear about y'all on the news. I'm just saying, it's a horrible thing. And you're absolutely right, Dana. It's got to be a top priority. That's why I always say, every piece of advice I ever give regarding while you're still in the relationship, getting through stuff, none of that is relevant if you're being physically abused or if you're in fear for your physical safety.
Yeah.
And, we develop a high threshold for abuse as we go through one of these relationships. That kind of bumps our threshold up little by little. And then one day they're throwing us up against the wall and we're still there, even though we said we'd never be there if we got touched one time out of turn, you know what I mean? Or whatever. So not out of turn, but out of hand, inappropriately, and so, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it.
It's scary when somebody's manipulation gets to that level. Mickey says her ex used to threaten to burn down our family's home if she broke up with him. She says, I was terrified, so I stayed for a long time. My ex, when I was in high school, had threatened to kill my dog, and he'd threatened to kill my brother if I broke up with him. And what's crazy about that is it took me 20 something years to realize that was abusive.
Wow.
And I stayed for a long time because because my mother and my brother did not take it seriously. And it was very much like, oh, he's just this punk kid. He's not going to do anything. Dana, you're so drama. You just like whatever. And still 20 something years later, it gives me anxiety thinking about it, because I felt like they don't understand like how dangerous this person is. This guy is losing gang member friends of his because of his behavior that was so crazy. And like, I just got tangled up with this guy, and I get it. It's terrifying. The thing with manipulation to that kind of level is the more we give into it, the worse it gets. And we can think, oh God, I so get that. Like, the more you give into it, you think, okay, well, hopefully it'll just go away. Hopefully it'll get better. Hopefully, like, the more I comply, it'll calm them down, and then they'll finally be a decent person. But it just doesn't ever work like that. And so it's important that we reach out. We keep reaching out. Sometimes it takes calling several different police officers to get one that fully understands, like, this is absolutely terrifying. Like, they might not get it, that this person, back in my situation, back in the day, I was like 17, like, oh, he's just a punk kid. This kid's not going to do anything. And it's like to get somebody that fully understands, like, I think he is going to do something, and this is a threat against my life or the lives of people I love. And like, what can I do? And sometimes it comes down to like, you need to really get some protection, something that you keep on you, something that you keep in your home, whatever you feel safe, but something that you feel comfortable using. I have a can of bear mace.
There you go. Yeah.
That's a drop a charging bear.
Yeah.
So
That'll
like,
be enough.
yeah, wasp spray. I mean, whatever to whatever degree you feel comfortable with, but take this stuff seriously.
I totally agree. Yeah. And I totally agree. Yeah. Okay. Do you have another one for us, or am I looking?
I'm scrolling.
Okay. Now this is interesting. Truth Seeker says, and I think this might be true. You can put a letter on the door for that person saying, "Do not come here again," with their name, and read it on camera, then tape it to the front door. And she says, if they come back after you told them not to, you can get a restraining order. I don't know if that's in every state, but I think it's certainly worth doing a little research with your local authorities and see if that's something that would fly there, because I think that's a great idea if it's possible. Yes. Let's see here. Slavic Princess wants you to get yourself an ice cream cake from Baskin and Robbins for your birthday.
Oh, that sounds delicious. I might. Cake will be happening later for sure.
Yes, cake. Yes, cake. Okay, very good. Let's see. My scary threats weren't necessary.
Maura asks, can the car cameras work when the car isn't running? There's different kinds of cameras out there. I want to say that the kind that my boyfriend has is the kind that comes on. It records whenever he's driving or whenever there's any type of like
motion
impact to the car.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
I'll find out. I'll find out what kind of camera we had. My boyfriend's a tech guy, and like I'll find out the names of what we had. And once we get the house back, maybe I can do a tour of the home security that we do have.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea. You really should do that.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, it's amazing the stuff that's out nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, you can even, like this webcam that I use, you can even set something as simple as this up to, it's like a Logitech something or other to automatically turn on when somebody comes in the room or whatever. Motion. That's why I thought maybe your other thing was motion detected, because I mean, that's just a webcam. You know what I mean? That's just some real simple stuff. So I bet you I know there's a lot of really good stuff out there. I thought about getting one of those doorbells with a camera on it. That's pretty cool. Because then, like, my neighbor has one, and she can be at work and answer her doorbell.
That's so cool.
Wow. I know. I like that. Anyway. Yeah. So they don't even really know she's not there. They can even see her face, if she wants them to. So I think that's really cool. Anyway. Okay. You got anything else for us right now? Let's see.
Let's see. Jen made a comment about she found a book her narcissist was reading about how to control someone's mind. And she said she thinks it might have been about gaslighting. She says, it makes me really mad. Here's the thing about that kind of stuff is, and Angie and I both really, I think, try to hammer this point home, is the tactics that they use, they will continue to change up. It's just like any other scammer out there, right? Like, once the tactics quit being effective, they're going to change up the tactics. What they don't have any impact on is your intuition and your spidey sense. All of you are picking up on so much stuff that we as a society have been used to just glossing over, giving people the benefit of the doubt, trying to stay open-minded, all of this stuff. And we haven't been perceiving other people's behavior clearly for like a wide variety of reasons. They can't impact that. You're going to pick up on like subtle, like eye movements, subtle body movements. They're going to try to want you to do certain things, right? They're going to try to push you in a direction, either actively or more passively, like the whole kind of false humility, like, oh, I'd really, love it if you would do this. Like, but once you're aware of you get rock solid within yourself, and your standards, your boundaries, your deal breakers, when something feels right, when something feels wrong, and you distance yourself when something starts feeling wrong, they can read books on manipulation all day long, and it's not gonna sway you.
Yeah.
They can't touch you. They really can't. Not for long. Like, you're going to be, if you move slow, if you always set the pace, which we should all be doing with any type of interaction, it's kind of this back and forth dance, right? But if somebody takes too big of a step, then it's up to us to kind of put them back in their place.
Right.
And
sometimes good people might take too big of a step, but
totally.
But good are also happy to be like, oh gosh, I'm sorry about that. I'll wait. I've found if you
nobody else knows where our boundaries are except for us, right?
Exactly.
And so if we're team oriented and we're both able to handle constructive criticism, and that's never, I mean, even if it's constructive, it can still be kind of hard to hear. But if somebody says, hey, you know what, you did X, Y, and Z, and it hurt my feelings, or I just wasn't okay with that. And if you're both trying to work on the same page, then the other person adjusts their behavior to work on the same page.
Right. Right. And, I think this is, can we really quick?
Sure.
I know that we're almost out of time, and this might be longer than we have, but maybe we could just comment on it and talk about it another time. But several people are talking about 50 Shades of Grey. Of course, some people like it, but a lot of people here in the chat, for obvious reasons, I think, don't like it. I never watched it myself. I thought I was going to watch it, but I didn't watch it. I tried to watch it one time, I think, but then I didn't watch it. Felt too, I didn't like it. So what about you? Did you watch it? And what do you think about stuff like that?
Okay. I did a video on 50 Shades of Grey a couple years ago. So you check
that out
for that on Thrive After Abuse.
Yeah. So search Thrive After Abuse, 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. Yeah, I had concerns galore about the movie, and it's not even about, and in the video I go through and I talk about this. In my first book, Start Here, I talk about this, like the difference between BDSM and a healthy relationship that has BDSM in it.
Good point.
So, because it's not necessarily the kink that's involved. You could make the argument that the kink involved is also a problem. But that aside, an abusive relationship, a healthy BDSM relationship, there's a safe word. An abusive relationship, there is no safe word.
Right.
50 Shades of Grey, I mean, he was stalking her. He was showing up unannounced. He steamrolled over her boundaries. He was controlling. That movie masked that as caring. He sold her car without her permission.
Mm-hmm. I don't even know all the things. I just know that. Yeah.
God, Angie, sometime we'll have to get together in person and watch movies, and it'll be like that old MST3K, Mystery Science Theater 3000. Did you ever watch that?
Yeah, where you kind of like react to it, and
yeah, you're sitting in the crowd and they would just like heckle all of these movies.
We will heckle, girl.
We will heckle.
We're gonna heckle 50 Shades of Grey in a future episode. Okay.
Yeah. And then Pam says too, she says 50 Shades of Grey has a happy ending in the movie, and I'm not sure how that would play out in real life. Yeah, there's so many issues. So like, he's attracted to her innocence in the movie. There's no, she's got no personality. Like, there's nothing there. That's a problem if somebody's only attracted to you because of your innocence, especially somebody there's such an unequal balance of power. And
so many things. Yeah.
So many. And he continues to exploit that. And then, yes, that's the fantasy though, right? Oh, there could be this real domineering guy who totally is so take charge, and he steamrolls over my boundaries, and I can't live without him. And it's this level of crazy intensity. And like, and then that train wreck of a relationship could somehow possibly end in a happily ever after.
This is just like that twin flames concept we were talking about earlier.
On steroids.
Yes. I mean,
it's so toxic, because actually the reality is those types of relationships, 50 Shades of Grey kind of stuff, those are the relationships that get people killed.
Yeah.
There is no happily ever after. It just gets, it's the like.
You're so right. And I don't know why. I really did think I was going to watch that movie because I heard good and bad about it. But I tried, and I couldn't watch it. And I don't know I can't even tell you why, except that I didn't like the scenes of the early in the movie when she was like going into his office and she was being kind of emotionally like, I don't know. There was just a bunch of BS with it for me. And I kept my bells were going off. I ended up just turning it off. And I planned on watching. I think I have the Kindle book and I might, but I never read it. And I might have the movie in my, what's that thing called? The Voodoo Library or whatever. I might have the movie in there, but I have never. Anyway, okay.
Well, and interestingly enough, too, 50 Shades of Grey was the sexy version of Twilight.
Oh, yeah, I guess it makes sense. And see, Twilight's another one where I kind of.
Oh, girl. Yes. We need to have a movie marathon because it's the same stuff. So the characters of Bella and Edward in Twilight were 50 Shades of Grey started off as fan fiction for Twilight.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. And so she was writing about, because the author of Twilight, I believe, is Mormon. And so she kept the books really clean. And all of these fans were like, no, we want them to get together. And so then this one fan ran with it, and then it just exploded. That's how, she wasn't the first one to write about like BDSM elements and romance. But it was because she was able to harness this existing reader group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, just on a slightly separate note, I have often compared narcissistic relationships to the True Blood world. Have you seen that?
Oh, gosh, it's been, girl, that's old. That's 10 years ago, maybe.
I know, but it's not a movie. It's like that series from HBO, you know what I'm talking about? But that's the only vampire thing I like really ever got into. But it was the idea of, the fairies were the empaths. They could hear everybody's thoughts except the vampires. They could read everybody except the vampires. And so they liked the vampires because they were mysterious to them and quiet to them. And the vampires were attracted to the fairies in such a way that they wanted to consume them. They smelled good to them. They could walk in the sunlight when they ate a fairy. Okay. Like that is the absolute epitome of, a perfect metaphor for our relationship with a narcissist.
It is. That's fascinating. I'm going to have to go. And today, because it's my birthday, our deal is that I get to watch whatever I want to watch TV show wise. And that's what we're going to be watching tonight. Binge watching on some True Blood shows. Here's another interesting thing. And then I know you've probably got to go. I just recently found out the other day that Bram Stoker's Dracula, when Bram Stoker wrote it, kind of back to the whole demon vampire lore that surrounds this, Bram Stoker thought that vampires were real, and that the original version of Dracula, when Bram Stoker took it to his publisher, this was the time of Jack the Ripper. And the publisher was like, oh, absolutely no way are we putting this out there. Like, this is going to cause a panic. So the Dracula that we know starts at page 102 of Bram Stoker's original book.
How do we get the rest of that book? I want to read it now.
No, I know. Me too, because I think that's fascinating that here's this person who really, truly, there's a lot of like things when you start thinking about kind of vampire lore and they can't handle they can't handle sunlight. Like if you look at that as like the light of day or clarity or like the truth, right?
Yeah.
They can't handle goodness in any form, whether that's like holy water or a cross, like if that's being representative of goodness. They have familiars, people that go out and do their biddings, which are kind of like the flying monkeys.
Yep.
They have, they only exist in darkness. They have to feed off of the lifeblood of others. Yeah. There's so many things there where you just think, I wonder how much of this was really written as more of like a cautionary tale than anything else. So
really, narcissists they do on an energy level they need to deplete their primary supply at least. And once you ever notice how with a narcissist, when they like oh, they're in a terrible mood and everything's terrible. And then they kind of emotionally vomit all over you. And then all of a sudden you're like down on the floor. You're dying. I mean, you feel like you just want to die because you're so depressed and sad and sick and whatever they make you feel like. And they're over there like, la, 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 everything's great.
Mm-hmm.
They now have put their emotional garbage on you, which is why I tell people all the time, y'all are not emotional dumpsters. You know
Right.
what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. That's so, this has been a great discussion, Dana.
Yeah, it's been interesting. We have to get together and watch some movies. I would love to hear your take on these things too.
I'd have a lot of fun with that. Yeah.
Good deal.
We're doing it. All right. Everybody, I think we're going to wrap up. Unless, Dana, do you have any final words of wisdom for them before I give them the scoop about next week?
Just go with your gut about things. You guys have all the answers within you. You really, really do.
Yeah. 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 And stay strong. Know that you've always got your family. You're never alone. And Dana and I will be over at Thrive After Abuse, her channel, next week. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification here and there at Thrive After Abuse. Also thriveafterabuse.com and Thrive After Abuse on Facebook. All right. As always, thanks so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life. Dana, thank you so much for our awesome continued partnership. I really appreciate you. And I will see you next week.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you later. All right.